Hello and welcome back to my beginner series in C#. I'm Miss Sarah Payne, and in this video we're going to be talking about making choices or using selection in C#, and we're going to use an if-else, and we're going to do a little bit of else-if as well. Before we get into the details of that, I just want to say that I'm assuming in this video that you have chosen an idea you're comfortable with, you know how to run a program, you know how to create a variable. If you're not, please do have a look at my full beginner series, because I start going through from an introduction to IDE choice, demonstrations of using Visual Studio Code and JetBrains Rider, and then we come on to starting to code, creating variables, looking at data types, user input, and then this one, which is the if-else selection. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at expressions, because when we talk about using if and else and selection, what we're actually doing is deciding if an expression or a statement is true or false. For example, I can make a statement that says sun is shining. Now we might look outside, and if that statement is, and we can say, is that statement true or false? And then the if statement will say, if true, if the result of that expression, or if that expression is true, then we do one thing, else, if it's not true, do another. And when it comes to storing true or false values, we have a new data type to consider, and that data type is a boolean, which is signified in C# by bool. And these bool values can have two status, either true or false. So I can say bool is true equals true. I could also say that bool is true equals false. And we can type them up in C# just like that. Now they're underlined in red because I've just done two of them with the same name. But you can see the principle. Just to show you, this is exactly the same other than the colouring in Visual Studio. If I just flick across to Visual Studio for a moment. And back. Okay. So, in order to create these Boolean values of true or false, we have some comparison operators. They are greater than, less than, equivalent to, greater than or equals to, and greater than or less than or equal to even. So greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Okay, so let's put that into some real world comparisons. We can say that 3 is equivalent to 3, or you can say equals to 3, but because this string bit later on it's not, it's equivalent to. So 3 is equivalent to 3. Well, most people are going to realise that that is true. If we say that 3 is greater than 3, well, it's not, because 3 is equivalent to 3, so that's false. Again, if I say that 3 is less than 3, well, it's not, because it's equivalent, so that's false. 3 is greater than or equal to 3. Well, actually, yes, it is, because 3 is equal to 3. And we've got 3 less than or equal to 3, which is also true. Okay, so we can extend that thinking across to strings. and we can make comparisons between strings as well as actual numerical values. The thing to note here is that it is case sensitive, and it is also sensitive to white space. So where we've got name and name and it is exactly the same, that will be true. Where we have name and name with a capital at the start, that is false because it is not exactly the same. Similarly, if we've got name there, but we've got a white space character here before the word name, that is not exactly the same, so that is false. And now we can use these in code. So let's see if I can just put this side by side for a moment. Should be able to make this fit, I think. So we're going to start. Remember, once again, I'm not typing most of this in. I'm typing some bits, but not all. Equals 10. I'm using, so typing I, cursor down in num2, that's 20. If, brackets, num1 is greater than num2, pair of curly brackets. So we put the expression into those brackets, into the normal brackets. Then we have the curly brackets that specify a code block. That means that this block of code is controlled by this statement. So console.writeLine num1 bigger than num2, else writeLine num1 not bigger than num2. Okay, so if I set a breakpoint here, I'm going to step into this now. So we've got the two values, and we're going to evaluate this expression. Num1 is greater than num2. If that is true, we're going to come into this here. If it's false, it will come in here. And we know that num1 is 10. So num1 is not greater than 2. And we should see that drop into here. And we do. Console writeLine. And we can see that. Okay, so what happens if we reverse these values? So that's 20, that's 10, debug again. Oh, I forgot to put a breakpoint. Would have helped, wouldn't it? So this time num1 is bigger than num2 because num1 is 20 this time. And there we go. Okay. So what about strings? Let's do the comparison with a string for you as well. So string letters 1 string. Now we can do num1 or letter 2 exactly equal to letter 1. 2. What have I missed? I've missed a plus sign. Right, so if I debug that this time, we can see we've got those. We should find that it's exactly the same. And it was. So if I close that, and then I just change that to a capital S, debug again. Okay. Oh, I made a mistake there, look. Forgot to put that little space in. So what about a slightly more complex example? Let's put this one in. So we've got a minimum age, we've got a maximum age, and we've got a user age. And what we're saying is if the user age is less than the minimum age, so if the user is less than 5, we're going to come here. Now, when it comes to this second line, this second else if, what happens here, if this bit hasn't found anything, it checks this. So if it gets to this point, we already know that they are at least 5, so we don't need to check for that again. And we can just say if they're less than or equal to the maximum age. So we can just do user age less than or equal to max age, and that, because everyone underage will go in there, everyone in the age range will go there, and if they're too old, it's covered by this else statement. Now you will notice that the else statement does not have a conditional, doesn't have an expression, doesn't have a condition. It just means anything that is not taken up by either this or by the else if is going to get caught here and will go out with the else. So let's start with a user age of 4. Debug. Oh, helps if I set a breakpoint, doesn't it? So that does that one. So let's do that again. And this time I'm going to set the user age to 5. Debug. So we've got over that one, it's not that one. Now we can step in. User age is still less than max age. So they're okay. So let's just change that to 11. In fact, we'll do 10 because we'll make sure that this still prints out okay. Checks that one, drops into that one, prints out okay. So the next one then to do would be 11. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at that in Visual Studio. Just so you can see it's essentially the same process. Let me flick across to Visual Studio. So it's exactly the same program. I'm going to set a breakpoint in. The only difference is to set the breakpoint, I have to right click and insert rather than just left click in that left hand area. I'm going to make sure that's on debug and then hit play. Exactly the same idea. We've got this set to 5, 10, that's 11. And we're going to step in and step over. So it's not less than 5. It'll step over that one as well because it's not less than or equal to 10. So we get caught in the else. And we've got too old in the output. Okay, so similarly, let's have a look at this code in VsCode. Paste that in there. Going to set a breakpoint. Run with, oh, I've done without debugging. Should have done with debugging. You can see we've got the right output, but I'll do it again with debugging. Very similar idea. Step over, too old, based on the fact this is 11. So we can see, although there are differences, again, it's a very similar process. Now, if you come from certain other languages, you may have seen code that looks similar to this. We can't do that in C#. But before I go any further than that, I want to come back to this original piece of code here. Because I said that these evaluate as boolean expressions right at the start. They all come to true or false. When you look at the code, it's not immediately obvious. So what I've got here is something almost identical to this original code. So that was the original code. And all I've done now is I've said that there's a boolean value, num1 is bigger, that is equal to num1 greater than num2. So I've moved the expression from here into a generated boolean above it, which is just here. And then in the conditional, which is this bit here, all I'm doing is I'm passing in num1 is bigger. Now that is exactly the same as saying that. If I say num1 is bigger, it's the same as saying num1 is bigger is equivalent to true. So if I put a breakpoint there, debug, we can see that's equated to false because num1 is 10, num2 is 20, so that's false, which means that this will equate to false and it'll come to the else, which it does. If I just reverse those numbers again, this time it's evaluated to true. Because this is true, so it's just different ways of typing the same code. Now, you won't generally see it done this way, but it is worth understanding that when we've got an expression in an if statement, it is actually evaluating that expression as being either true or false and then responding to the evaluation of true or false. Right, so let's come back down here. Because what if all we wanted was to find out whether a user is old enough or not? I don't want to say that they're too old or too young. I just want to say okay or not okay. Now, I could put not okay like that and not okay like that. And in some languages, that's actually not really good. Now, in some languages, we can do something like this. So we're saying that while minimum is less than or equal to user age, and user age is less than or equal to max, we're okay. C# doesn't let you do this. You can't have multiple operators together. But just let me show you. Minimum age less than. And it immediately underlines it in red. And if we hover over it, what it says is it cannot apply operator less than or equal to operands of type bool and int. It's because it's evaluating the first one and then that's become a bool and now it doesn't work. What we can do is say bool minimum age is less than or equal to user age and sorry, I said it wrong around. Let's do that sensibly. User age is greater than or equal to minimum age and user age is less than or equal to maximum age. And then we can just do an if okay. Okay. Else. Oh, I'm going to cover that a lot more later. I just wanted to show you that this can be done like this. Now, I've said umpteen times in previous videos that we don't ignore underlines. So let's see what this has got to say. Remove expression. The reason it's saying that is because we've got fixed values here. Therefore, it knows that it's always true. However, if these were genuinely variable, if these could change because these were coming in from a user input or something, that wouldn't happen. In fact, let's just do that just to show you. So int minimum age equals int.parse console.readline and now that's gone away. And if I do the same for the others, so now that those values could change, it's no longer saying that that is always true because it could now be false. Okay, that about covers input and selection. Thank you for watching. Bye.